Hello guys, welcome to Ben 10 What If. So in this video, we will see what if Ben 10 could absorb alien DNA like Kevin. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, The Absorption Incident. I'm telling you, this is the place, Kevin insisted, tapping the alien tech detector in his hand. The device pulsed with a soft green glow that intensified as he pointed it toward the abandoned warehouse ahead. Whatever Onimo stole from that plumber convoy is putting out some serious energy. Ben Tennyson squinted at the decrepit building, its metal walls rusted and covered in graffiti. The sign that once proclaimed, Bellwood Storage Solutions, hung crooked above double doors that looked like they hadn't been opened in years. Doesn't exactly scream secret evil lair, Ben said, fidgeting with the Omnitrix on his wrist. But then again, neither did that mini-golf course last month. Gwen rolled her eyes, her hands already glowing with mana. Can we focus, please? The plumbers said what Onimo stole was dangerous, even by his standards. What exactly are we looking for? Ben asked, moving closer to the building. Kevin pocketed the detector and ran a hand through his dark hair. Some experimental tech called a DNA splicer. Supposedly Azimuth was working on it. Azimuth? Ben raised an eyebrow. If he made it, we should definitely be worried. Let's just get in there before Onimo does whatever crazy thing he's planning, Gwen said, taking the lead. The trio approached the warehouse cautiously. Kevin placed his hand on the rusty metal door and absorbed its properties, his skin taking on a metallic sheen. Show off, Ben muttered with a grin. Says the guy with 10,000 aliens in his watch, Kevin shot back. Gwen created a small mana shield. If you two are done, there's a mad scientist inside we need to stop. Ben nodded and activated the Omnitrix, cycling through his alien options. Going with Swampfire. Good all-around option if we don't know what we're facing. He slammed his hand down on the device, and green light enveloped him. When it faded, the plant-like alien stood in Ben's place, methane flames flickering from his palms. Ready? Swampfire asked, his voice deeper and raspier than Ben's human form. Kevin smirked and formed his hand into a hammer. Always. With a powerful kick, Kevin broke down the door. The warehouse interior was dark except for an eerie purple glow emanating from the far end. The cavernous space was filled with abandoned shipping containers and forgotten machinery, creating a maze of potential hiding spots. I don't like this, Gwen whispered as they moved forward. It's too quiet. Swampfire raised his hand, creating a small flame for additional light. Yeah, Onimo usually has some mutant pets greeting us by now. As if on cue, a horrific screech echoed through the warehouse. Something large moved in the shadows to their left, followed by several smaller shapes scuttling across the floor. You had to say something, Kevin muttered. The first creature lunged into the light, a nightmarish hybrid that looked like a cross between a frog and a scorpion, with bulging red eyes and a stinger that dripped venom. Frog-scorpion. That's a new one, Swampfire commented as he hurled fireballs at the creature. The monster dodged with surprising agility and leapt toward Gwen, who blocked it with a mana shield before flinging it across the room. Kevin charged at two more hybrids approaching from the right, his metal fists connecting with satisfying thuds. Swampfire entangled another creature in vines that shot from his arms. These aren't Onimo's usual style. They're more mixed up. That would be the effect of my new acquisition. A familiar voice cackled from the shadows. Dr. Onimo emerged into the purple light, his usual green-tinted goggles glowing ominously. Behind him, a large machine hummed with power, its center containing a spherical device that pulsed with energy. The DNA splicer, Gwen gasped. So that's what it does. Merely a fraction of its potential. Onimo proclaimed. With this device, I can combine any creature's genetic material to create perfect biological weapons. And once I've perfected the process. He pointed dramatically at Ben. The Omnitrix will provide me with all the alien DNA I could ever need. Swampfire stepped forward. Not gonna happen, Onimo. We're taking that device back to the plumbers. I think not, Tennyson. Onimo pressed a button on his control panel, and a wave of mutated creatures swarmed from hidden corners of the warehouse. Split up. Gwen shouted, erecting barriers of mana to hold back the creatures. Kevin charged toward Onimo while Swampfire and Gwen dealt with the hybrid monsters. The warehouse erupted into chaos, creatures screeching, mana barriers flashing, and flames illuminating the battle. Swampfire fought his way through the horde, using vines and fire to keep the monsters at bay. These things are tougher than they look. They're getting smarter too. Gwen called out as she narrowly avoided a coordinated attack from 3 hybrids. Kevin had almost reached Onimo when a massive creature, part rhinoceros, part mantis, burst through a shipping container and slammed into him, sending him flying into a stack of metal drums. Kevin! Gwen cried out. Swampfire changed direction, heading toward the fallen Kevin while simultaneously fighting off the encroaching monsters. I'm coming. Onimo laughed maniacally as he adjusted controls on the DNA splicer. Too late, Tennyson. The final calibration is complete. Now I can splice DNA at the most fundamental level. The device began to pulse more rapidly, the purple glow intensifying. Energy arcs crackled around it, growing increasingly unstable. That doesn't look good, Swampfire muttered as he reached Kevin, who was groggily getting to his feet. He's overloading it, Kevin said, his metal coating dented from the impact. That thing wasn't meant to be pushed that hard. Gwen joined them, maintaining a protective barrier around the 3. We need to shut it down before this? Onimo cackled as he twisted a final dial. The DNA splicer emitted a high-pitched whine as energy arcs lashed out wildly. Everyone down. Swampfire yelled, pushing his friends behind a fallen shipping container just as the device fired a massive energy beam. But instead of hitting where they had been standing, the beam ricocheted off a metal surface and shot directly toward them. Kevin instinctively raised his hands to protect them, touching the Omnitrix symbol on Swampfire's chest just as the energy struck. The world exploded into blinding light and pain. Green and purple energy enveloped both Kevin and Swampfire, creating a feedback loop between Kevin's absorption abilities and the Omnitrix. Gwen screamed their names as the energy intensified, then suddenly collapsed inward with a thunderous implosion. The warehouse fell silent except for the soft whir of the now depleted DNA splicer and Onimo's shocked gasping. Fascinating, the scientist whispered, staring at the unconscious forms of Ben and Kevin. The Omnitrix sparked and glitched, cycling through alien forms before settling into a strange pulsing pattern. Gwen crawled out from behind the container, dazed but unhurt. Ben. Kevin. Onimo snapped out of his scientific reverie and grabbed the DNA splicer. Another time, perhaps. He whistled sharply, and his rhinomantis creature burst through the wall, allowing him to mount and escape with the device. Gwen hardly noticed Onimo's departure as she rushed to her friends and cousin. Both were unconscious but breathing. Kevin's metal coating had receded, but strange green circuit-like patterns briefly flashed across his skin before fading. Ben had reverted to human form, but the Omnitrix looked different, its usual green glow now pulsed with purple undertones, and the faceplate displayed unfamiliar symbols that shifted and changed. Ben, Kevin, wake up. Gwen pleaded, shaking them gently. Kevin groaned first, his eyes fluttering open. What happened? The DNA splicer hit you both, Gwen explained, relief washing over her face. Are you okay? Kevin sat up slowly, examining himself. I feel weird. But normal weird, not dying weird. Ben remained unconscious, the Omnitrix continuing its strange behavior. Ben's not waking up, Gwen said worriedly. Kevin leaned over to examine the device on Ben's wrist. The Omnitrix took most of the blast. No telling what that energy did to it. As if responding to Kevin's voice, the Omnitrix suddenly stabilized, its glow returning to a more normal green, though still interspersed with purple pulses. Ben's eyes snapped open and he gasped for air. Ben! Gwen threw her arms around him. Ugh, what hit me? Ben groaned, sitting up with Gwen's help. Feels like I went 10 rounds with Way Big. Kevin stood up, offering Ben a hand. Onimo's new toy packed more punch than we thought. Ben accepted Kevin's help and got to his feet, swaying slightly. Onimo, where is he? Got away with the DNA splicer, Gwen admitted. But right now I'm more worried about you too. That energy did something to the Omnitrix. Ben looked down at his watch, noticing the purple tint to its usual green glow. Huh. That's new. He tapped the faceplate, but instead of bringing up the alien selection interface, the Omnitrix merely pulsed in response. Maybe we should call Grandpa Max, Gwen suggested. Or try to contact Azimuth. It's probably nothing, Ben said, giving the Omnitrix another tap. Probably just needs to reboot or something. Kevin shrugged. We should still report back to the plumbers about Onimo and the DNA splicer. That thing was bad news before, and now he's had time to figure it out. You're right, Ben agreed. Let's head to Plumber HQ and, a sudden alarm from outside cut him off. Emergency vehicles sped past the warehouse, sirens blaring. Trouble, Gwen said, already moving toward the exit. Outside, people ran in panic as a massive creature rampaged through the street. It resembled a rhinoceros but with scale-like armor and multiple horns. One of Onimo's leftovers? Kevin asked, absorbing the concrete from the sidewalk. Doesn't look like his style, Ben said, activating the Omnitrix. Too natural. More like a real alien than a hybrid. The Omnitrix sparked as Ben twisted the dial, the holographic display flickering between alien forms before going dark. Come on, not now. Ben slapped the watch in frustration. The Rhino alien charged toward a group of civilians trapped against a building. Gwen threw up a mana shield just in time, but the creature's momentum was pushing her back. Ben, she called out. I'm trying. Ben yelled, frantically working the Omnitrix. Something's wrong with it. Kevin ran forward, concrete fists swinging as he intercepted the creature. Figure it out fast. This thing's strong. The creature roared and threw Kevin aside, then resumed its charge toward the civilians. Gwen's shield was cracking under the pressure. Work, you stupid watch. Ben slammed his palm down on the Omnitrix in desperation. Instead of the usual transformation sequence, the Omnitrix emitted a strange pulse that spread up Ben's arm. Where it touched, his skin changed, becoming crystalline like diamond heads. What the? Ben stared at his partially transformed arm in shock. The crystalline texture continued to spread, covering his right arm up to the shoulder. But it stopped there, leaving the rest of him human. Ben. Gwen called out, her voice strained as her shield began to fail. Acting on instinct, Ben ran forward and thrust his crystalline arm at the rampaging alien. Sharp crystal shards shot out from his palm, striking the creature's hide and causing it to bellow in pain. It worked. Ben exclaimed in surprise, looking at his transformed arm. The creature turned its attention to Ben, pawing the ground before charging. Ben stood his ground, unsure if his partial transformation would be enough. As the alien bore down on him, Ben felt a strange sensation from the Omnitrix, as if it was responding to the proximity of the alien. When the creature was almost upon him, Ben placed his normal hand on the alien's horn as it passed. A flash of green light pulsed from his palm, and suddenly his left arm began transforming too, taking on the Rhino alien's armored hide and strength. Whoa! Ben gasped as he grabbed the charging alien with both arms, one crystalline, one armored, and actually managed to stop its momentum. With a tremendous heave, he flipped the creature onto its side. How are you doing that? Kevin asked, rejoining the fight. I don't know. Ben replied, looking at his mismatched arms in amazement. I touched it, and then I absorbed its properties. Kevin's eyes widened. Like me? You're absorbing powers. The creature struggled back to its feet, more cautious now as it faced Ben. With both arms transformed, Ben felt stronger, more confident. He charged forward, meeting the alien head-on. The collision sent shockwaves through the street, cracking pavement. Using his diamond head arm to create handholds, Ben climbed onto the creature's back and pressed both palms against its hide. Another pulse of energy, and more of Ben's body took on aspects of the alien, his torso becoming armored and stronger. This is so weird. Ben called out, holding on as the creature bucked and spun, trying to throw him off. Gwen and Kevin watched in amazement as Ben wrestled with the alien, gradually gaining the upper hand as more of his body adapted to combine Diamond Head's crystalline structure with the Rhino alien's strength and armor. It's like the DNA splicer affected how the Omnitrix works, Gwen theorized. Instead of transforming completely, he's absorbing and combining traits. Like what I do with materials, Kevin said, but with alien DNA. Ben finally managed to subdue the creature by creating crystal restraints that pinned it to the ground. Breathing heavily, he stepped back to examine his transformed body, a patchwork of Diamond Head's crystals and the Rhino alien's armor. This is different, he said, flexing his hands experimentally. I'm not fully transformed, but I have the powers. The creature gave one last effort to break free, then slumped in defeat, its aggression seeming to fade. As it calmed, Ben noticed something strange, a small device attached to the base of its neck, now visible since it had stopped thrashing. Look at this, Ben said, carefully approaching and removing the device. It was a small neural transmitter with Onimo's signature style. Onimo was controlling it remotely. So it's a real alien, not one of his hybrids, Gwen concluded. Probably escaped from whatever zoo Onimo raided for DNA samples, Kevin added. Plumber vehicles arrived at the scene, agents piling out with containment equipment. Ben waved them over, still trying to process his bizarre new condition. What happened to you? One of the agents asked, staring at Ben's partially transformed state. Long story, Ben replied. The short version is the Omnitrix got zapped by a DNA splicer and now I'm doing this. He gestured to himself. The plumbers secured the alien creature while Ben, Gwen, and Kevin explained the situation. Throughout the debriefing, Ben kept expecting his transformations to wear off, but they remained. Shouldn't you have timed out by now? Kevin asked, noticing Ben's concerned expression. Yeah, I should have, Ben agreed, examining the Omnitrix. It continued to pulse with its green-purple light but showed no signs of reverting him to normal. Try deactivating it manually, Gwen suggested. Ben tapped the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, but instead of the usual transformation sequence, the absorbed traits slowly receded, as if being drawn back into the device. After a minute, he was fully human again. That was different, he said, looking at his now normal hands. Different bad or different good? Kevin asked. I'm not sure yet, Ben admitted. It felt weird, but also kind of cool. Like I had more control over what parts transformed. As the plumbers finished containing the alien, a small craft descended from the sky, landing nearby. The door opened to reveal a familiar small, gray figure. Azimuth, Ben said in surprise. The Galvan creator of the Omnitrix stepped out, his expression even more stern than usual. Benjamin Tennyson. I detected a critical anomaly in the Omnitrix. What have you done to my creation this time? Ben raised his hands defensively. It wasn't my fault. Dr. Onimo stole something called a DNA splicer and, a DNA splicer. Azimuth interrupted, his large eyes widening. You encountered my prototype genetic recombinator. If by encountered, you mean got blasted by while it was being overloaded, then yes, Kevin said. Azimuth hopped onto a nearby car hood to get closer to Ben's eye level. Show me the Omnitrix. Ben held out his wrist. Azimuth examined the device closely, his expert fingers manipulating components that Ben didn't even know existed. Fascinating, de Galvan muttered. The core functionality has been completely restructured. Rather than full transformations, it's now designed to absorb and implement partial genetic traits. So I'm stuck like this? Ben asked, concerned. Not necessarily stuck, Asmuth replied. The Omnitrix is still functioning, just differently. Instead of containing and expressing complete genetic codes, it now samples and adapts traits that you can selectively implement. Like Kevin's absorption ability, Gwen said. Similar in concept, though fundamentally different in execution, Asmuth agreed. Kevin absorbs properties of materials. This modification allows Ben to absorb genetic traits directly. Ben frowned. But I still have access to my aliens, right? I was using Diamondhead's powers earlier. The Omnitrix still contains all the genetic samples it had before, Asmuth explained. But rather than transforming you completely into those aliens, you can now selectively manifest their traits and combine them as needed. That actually sounds kind of awesome, Ben admitted, a grin spreading across his face. Don't get excited, Asmuth warned. This modification was never intended. The DNA splicer was an experimental device for studying genetic recombination, not for practical application. There could be unforeseen consequences. There always are, Gwen sighed. Speaking of consequences, Kevin interjected, Onimo got away with the DNA splicer. What's he going to do with it? Asmuth's expression darkened. Nothing good, I imagine. The device was never meant to leave my laboratory. In the wrong hands, it could be used to create dangerous hybrid species or even weapons. Like he was already doing with those frog-scorpion things, Ben said. Crude applications, Asmuth dismissed. With time and study, he could accomplish far worse. A plumber approached the group. We've secured the alien and are preparing to transport it back to its home world. But we're picking up another disturbance across town, an unauthorized ship landing in the forest preserve. We'll check it out, Ben said automatically. Ben, wait, Asmuth cautioned. You should allow me to examine the Omnitrix more thoroughly before you attempt to use it again. No time, Ben replied. If there's trouble, I need to help. I'll come find you after we check this out. Asmuth sighed in resignation. Very well. But be careful, Ben Tennyson. Your new abilities may not work exactly as you expect. Ben nodded and turned to Gwen and Kevin. Ready for round 2? Kevin absorbed the metal from a nearby streetlight. Always. We'll take my car, he added, leading them toward where he'd parked his customized green and black muscle car. As they drove toward the forest preserve, Ben kept examining the Omnitrix, trying to understand its new functionality. So now you absorb powers instead of transforming? Kevin asked, steering around a corner sharply. Sounds familiar. Jealous I'm copying your style? Ben teased. Kevin frowned. It's not a style, it's who I am. You've got a watch that can do anything, and now it does the one thing that makes me special. Gwen placed a hand on Kevin's shoulder from the back seat. Kevin, that's not fair. Ben didn't choose this. I know, Kevin said, but his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. It's just weird, okay? Ben looked at his friend in surprise. He hadn't considered how Kevin might feel about the Omnitrix mimicking his unique abilities. Look, Kevin, I don't know how long this will last, Ben said. Asmuth might fix it as soon as we're done here. Whatever, Kevin replied, focusing on the road ahead. They arrived at the edge of the forest preserve, parking on a service road. The evening sky was darkening, but a faint glow emanated from deep within the trees. That's definitely not campfire, Gwen observed. The trio made their way through the forest, following the glow until they reached a small clearing. In the center sat a sleek, silver spacecraft unlike any alien vessel they'd encountered before. Its design was almost organic, with flowing lines and surfaces that seemed to ripple in the twilight. "Anyone recognize that design?" Ben whispered. Both Kevin and Gwen shook their heads. "It's not in the Plumber database," Kevin said, checking his badge. "At least not that I can access." The ship's hull suddenly shifted, a section melting away to form an entrance. A tall, humanoid figure emerged, its body covered in what appeared to be liquid metal armor that constantly rippled and reformed. "That's different," Ben murmured. The alien turned toward their hiding spot with unnerving accuracy. "I know you're there," it called out in a surprisingly melodic voice. "The one who absorbs. Step forward." Ben exchanged glances with his friends, then slowly stood. "You talking to me?" The alien cocked its head. "Interesting. You are not what I expected." It approached with fluid movements. "I am Mercuron of the Absorbing Collective. I sensed a new absorption entity on this planet and came to investigate." "Absorption entity?" Kevin stepped forward as well. "You mean me?" The alien, Mercuron, looked between Kevin and Ben with apparent confusion, its liquid metal face reshaping itself. "Two of you. Fascinating. But the signal I detected was new and powerful." "That would be me, I guess," Ben said, holding up the Omnitrix. "Recent upgrade. Accident, actually." Mercuron moved closer, examining the device. "A technological adaptation rather than a natural ability. Even more intriguing. Our collective studies absorption abilities throughout the galaxy. Yours is unique." "Look, not to be rude," Gwen interjected, "but why are you here, exactly? Earth is a level 2 protected planet. Unauthorized landings are against galactic law." Mercuron's face shifted into what might have been a smile. "Merely scientific curiosity, young Anodite." "How did you know?" Gwen began. "I can sense energy patterns," Mercuron explained. "Just as I sensed the new absorption power emerging on your planet. I'm a collector of sorts, gathering knowledge of unique abilities." "A collector?" Ben repeated, suddenly wary. "You just collect information, or?" "Information primarily," Mercuron said, its tone remaining pleasant. "Though occasionally, specimens are necessary for deeper study." Kevin's hands clenched. "Specimens? Like people?" "Only the most unique cases," Mercuron assured them. "And you two are quite unique indeed. Especially you." It pointed at Ben. "A device that grants absorption abilities with apparent access to multiple genetic codes. The collective would find this most valuable." Ben took a step back, his hand hovering over the Omnitrix. "Sorry, but I'm not interested in being a specimen." "That's unfortunate," Mercuron said, its friendly demeanor shifting. The liquid metal of its body began to extend into tendrils. "But ultimately, not your decision to make." Kevin immediately absorbed the metal from a nearby rock, transforming his arms into blades. "Back off, Mercury Man." Gwen's hands glowed with mana, ready to create shields or projectiles as needed. Ben activated the Omnitrix, hoping it would work better than the last time. The display flickered between alien forms before settling on a familiar silhouette. He slammed his palm down on the device. Instead of a full transformation, Ben's skin began to change in patches, taking on the fiery appearance of heat blast. The transformation spread across his torso and arms but stopped at his neck and waist, leaving his head and legs human. "Still getting used to this," Ben muttered, looking at his partially transformed body. Mercuron observed with obvious interest. "Remarkable control for a new absorber." Less talking, more fighting, Kevin charged forward, slashing at the alien with his metal arms. Mercuron simply flowed around the attacks, its liquid metal body reforming after each strike. "Physical attacks are ineffective against my composition." Gwen launched mana discs that sliced through Mercuron's form, but the segments simply rejoined like mercury droplets. Ben thrust his hands forward, releasing a stream of flame at the alien. The heat seemed to affect Mercuron more than the physical attacks, causing its liquid metal to bubble and steam. Thermal disruption, Mercuron hissed, retreating slightly. Impressive adaptation. Ben advanced, continuing the flame assault. There's more where that came from. Mercuron raised its arms, and suddenly the liquid metal of its body shot out in dozens of tendrils, wrapping around trees, rocks, and even Kevin's metal form. Where the tendrils touched, they seemed to absorb properties, wood, stone, and metal patterns flowing back into Mercuron's body. I am also an absorber, it explained, its body now a patchwork of materials. Though I specialize in temporary acquisition. The wood portions of its body were unaffected by Ben's flames, while the stone sections provided armor. With frightening speed, Mercuron rushed forward and grabbed Ben's wrist, directly touching the Omnitrix. A pulse of energy erupted between them, sending both staggering backward. Mercuron's liquid metal form rippled with green energy patterns similar to the Omnitrix's glow. Fascinating, Mercuron gasped. So much genetic information. Ben felt a strange drain, as if the alien was somehow accessing the Omnitrix through touch. Acting on instinct, he concentrated on changing his partial transformation, focusing on a different alien. The fiery heat blast portions of his body shifted, becoming the crystalline structure of Diamond Head. Ben formed his arm into a sharp blade and slashed at Mercuron, managing to separate a portion of its body. Unlike previous attacks, the severed piece didn't immediately rejoin the main body. Instead, it writhed on the ground, struggling to maintain cohesion. The crystalline structure, Mercuron observed. It disrupts my molecular bonding. Good to know, Ben said, fully converting both arms to Diamond Head's form and charging forward. Kevin, now free from the metal tendrils, joined the attack. Aim for where he touched the Omnitrix. That part's still unstable. Together, they drove Mercuron back toward its ship. Gwen created mana platforms that allowed Ben to strike from above, raining crystal shards down on the alien. Mercuron's form became increasingly unstable, the various absorbed materials conflicting with each other as it tried to maintain cohesion. Enough, it finally declared, retreating to its ship. I've gathered sufficient data for now. We will meet again, absorbers of Earth. The ship's entrance reformed, sealing Mercuron inside. With a high-pitched hum, the vessel rose into the air and shot off into the night sky. What was that about? Kevin asked as they watched the ship disappear. Nothing good, Gwen replied. It seemed way too interested in your abilities, both of yours. Ben let the crystal transformation recede back into the Omnitrix, returning fully to human form. It called itself part of an absorbing collective. Sounds like there are more like it out there. Great, Kevin muttered. Alien power collectors. Just what we needed. Ben examined the Omnitrix, which was still pulsing with its purple-tinted green glow. We should get back to Azimuth. I want to know more about what's happened to the Omnitrix, and whether he knows anything about this collective. They returned to Kevin's car and headed back toward Bellwood. Ben sat quietly in the passenger seat, testing how the Omnitrix responded to his thoughts. He found he could partially transform just his hand into different alien forms with concentration, XLR8's claws, then 4 arms red skin, then Wildmutt's orange fur. Show off, Kevin commented, noticing Ben's experiments. Just trying to figure it out, Ben replied. It's like having access to all my aliens at once, but in pieces. Must be nice, Kevin said, a touch of bitterness in his voice. Ben stopped his transformations and looked at his friend. Kevin, what's really bothering you about this? Kevin kept his eyes on the road. Nothing. Forget it. It's not nothing, Ben insisted. You've been off since we found out what happened to the Omnitrix. After a long moment of silence, Kevin finally spoke. My absorption powers, they're what make me special. What make me useful to the team. Now you can do what I do, plus you have all your alien powers on top of that. So what does that make me? Just the guy with the car. Kevin, Gwen said softly from the back seat. Ben shook his head. Dude, that's crazy. You're not just your powers. You're part of this team because of who you are, not just what you can do. Easy for you to say, Kevin replied. You've got the most powerful device in the universe strapped to your wrist. And half the time I don't know how to use it properly, Ben countered. You've mastered your abilities through hard work. I just got lucky with the Omnitrix. Kevin didn't respond, but his grip on the steering wheel loosened slightly. Besides, Ben added with a grin, someone's gotta teach me how this absorption thing works. Who better than the expert? A reluctant smile tugged at the corner of Kevin's mouth. I guess I could give you a few pointers. If you're lucky. The tension in the car eased as they drove back into Bellwood. However, as they approached the plumber base where Azimuth was waiting, Ben's Omnitrix suddenly began pulsing rapidly, the purple tint growing stronger. Guys? Ben held up his wrist. Something's happening. The device emitted a high-pitched whine, and Ben doubled over in pain. Arg! It feels like it's burning. Ben! Gwen leaned forward in alarm. Kevin swerved to the side of the road and parked. What's happening? I don't know, Ben gasped, clutching his wrist. The Omnitrix's faceplate was cycling through alien forms at incredible speed, flashes of transformation energy sparking around Ben's arm. It's like it's malfunctioning, Gwen observed, placing a protective mana field around the device. Ben's skin began shifting rapidly, patches of different alien forms appearing and disappearing across his body. Heat blasts flames, big chills wings, humongousaur scales, all flickering in and out of existence as the Omnitrix spiraled out of control. We need to get him to Azimuth now. Gwen said urgently. Kevin nodded and floored the accelerator, the car screeching back onto the road. Hang on, Tennyson. Don't you dare go all mutant alien on us. Ben could barely hear them through the pain. It felt like his DNA was being rewritten and erased over and over. Through gritted teeth, he managed to say, something's wrong, something the DNA splicer did. Just hold on, Gwen urged, maintaining the mana field around the Omnitrix in an attempt to stabilize it. As they raced toward the plumber base, Ben's consciousness began to fade, the pain overwhelming his senses. The last thing he heard was Kevin's voice calling his name, then darkness consumed him. Ben floated in a strange void, surrounded by swirling patterns of DNA that he somehow recognized as belonging to his various alien forms. They circled him like galaxies, each one distinct yet connected to the others. Fascinating, isn't it? A voice echoed through the void. So much potential in a single device. Ben turned to see Dr. Onimo standing, or floating, nearby, the DNA splicer in his hands. Onimo? What is this? Where am I? In the space between transformations, Onimo replied with a twisted smile. A place of pure genetic potential. I'm not really here, of course. This is merely your mind's attempt to process what's happening to your DNA. What did you do to the Omnitrix? Ben demanded. Onimo laughed. I merely provided the catalyst. The DNA splicer exposed the true potential of the device, the ability to mix and match genetic traits at will. But your human body wasn't designed to handle such power. So I'm dying? Ben asked, fear creeping into his voice. Perhaps, Onimo shrugged. Or perhaps evolving into something new. Either way, I'll be watching with great interest. The samples I collected during our encounter will provide valuable data on your transformation. Before Ben could respond, Onimo faded away, and the void began to collapse. The swirling DNA patterns converged on Ben, engulfing him in a storm of genetic information. He awoke with a gasp, finding himself on an examination table in the plumber medical bay. Azimuth stood on his chest, tiny hands working furiously at the Omnitrix. Welcome back, the Galvan said without looking up from his work. What happened? Ben asked, his voice hoarse. Your new abilities overwhelmed the Omnitrix's stabilizing systems, Azimuth explained. The feedback nearly caused a complete genetic meltdown. Gwen and Kevin stood nearby, relief evident on their faces. You had us worried, Gwen said softly. Yeah, don't do that again, Kevin added, trying to sound casual despite his obvious concern. Ben attempted to sit up, but Azimuth pressed a tiny hand against his chest. Remain still. I've temporarily stabilized the Omnitrix, but it's still adapting to its new configuration. Can you fix it? Ben asked. Get it back to normal. Azimuth paused his work. I could, with time and the proper equipment. The question is, should I? What do you mean? Ben frowned. The modification, while unintended, isn't necessarily detrimental, Azimuth explained. In fact, it may represent an evolutionary step for the Omnitrix, a new way to utilize the genetic samples it contains. But it almost killed me, Ben pointed out. Because you were unprepared and untrained, Azimuth countered. With proper instruction and practice, you could master these new abilities. The power to selectively combine alien traits could be far more versatile than complete transformations. Ben considered this. So instead of fixing it, you want me to learn to use it like this? The choice is yours, Azimuth said. I can attempt to restore the Omnitrix to its original state, or I can help you adapt to its new functionality. Ben looked at his friends. What do you guys think? Gwen stepped forward. It's your decision, Ben. You're the one who has to live with it. Kevin hesitated, then shrugged. Like I said, I could teach you a few things about absorption if you wanted to keep it. Ben stared at the ceiling, weighing his options. The incident with Mercuron flashed through his mind, how combining Diamond Head's properties had been effective when a full transformation might not have been. And there was something appealing about the flexibility of partial transformations. I want to try, Ben decided. At least for a while. If it doesn't work out, we can always try to fix it later, right? Azimuth nodded. A wise choice. Learning to adapt is often better than reverting to the familiar. He hopped off Ben's chest and onto a nearby console. I'll modify the Omnitrix to better regulate the absorption process and prevent another overload. But the rest will be up to you. As Azimuth worked, a plumber agent entered the medical bay. Sorry to interrupt, but we've got reports of Dr. Onimo appearing at the Bellwood Zoo with some kind of hybrid creatures. They're unlike anything we've seen before. Ben sat up, looking at the Omnitrix. Guess I'm going to get practice sooner than expected. Ben, you just collapsed, Gwen protested. You should rest. No time, Ben replied, sliding off the examination table. Onimo's not going to wait while I recover. Azimuth finished his adjustments and stepped back. The Omnitrix should be stable enough for limited use. But be careful, Ben Tennyson. Don't push it too far too quickly. Ben nodded. Got it. Small steps. Kevin absorbed the metal from a nearby table. Let's go catch a mad scientist. As they headed for the door, Azimuth called after them, one more thing, Ben. The DNA splicer technology was experimental for a reason. Be wary of anyone too interested in your new abilities, especially this collector you mentioned. Will do, Ben promised, then followed his friends toward their next challenge, the Omnitrix pulsing with new potential on his wrist. Outside in Kevin's car, Ben couldn't help testing his partial transformation again, turning his right hand into Chromastone's crystalline structure, then Spider-Monkey's blue fur. Show off, Kevin muttered, but this time with a half-smile. Just practicing, Ben replied. Like you said, I've got a lot to learn about absorption. As they drove toward the zoo, Ben reflected on the day's events. The Omnitrix had changed, and with it, his approach to being a hero would need to change too. No more relying solely on full transformations, now he would need to think strategically about which traits to combine and when. And somewhere out there, Onimo was experimenting with the DNA splicer, creating new threats. And Mercuron and his absorbing collective were interested in Ben's new abilities. New powers, new challenges, new enemies. But that was the life of Ben Tennyson. Whatever came next, he would face it, one absorption at a time. Chapter 2, Mastering the Merger. Come on, Ben. Focus. Grandpa Max's voice echoed through the plumber training facility as Ben dodged another volley of laser fire. 2 weeks had passed since the DNA splicer incident, and Ben spent most of his time learning to control his new absorption abilities. Right now, that meant evading a dozen training drones while trying to maintain multiple alien traits simultaneously. I'm focusing. Ben shouted back, his right arm crystallized like Diamond Head while his legs had transformed with XLR-8's enhanced speed. It's not as easy as it looks. The drones circled, adjusting their targeting algorithms. Ben dashed across the room at superhuman speed, crystal shards erupting from his arm to intercept incoming blasts. He was getting better at this, holding 2 different alien powers at once without the Omnitrix glitching out. Try adding a third element, Max suggested from the observation deck. You need to push your limits to find them. Ben gritted his teeth. Alright, here goes nothing. Concentrating on the Omnitrix, Ben felt the familiar energy spread across his torso. His chest transformed into Heatblast's fiery form, flames dancing across his upper body while his crystal arm and speed-enhanced legs maintained their transformations. Yes. Ben pumped his fist, which sent a fireball into the ceiling. Oops. Max chuckled over the intercom. 3 different aliens at once. That's progress. The training room door slid open as Gwen walked in, carrying a tablet. I'd be more impressed if you weren't about to burn down the base. Ben let the flames recede while maintaining his other transformations. Hey, I'm getting better at this. Watch. He concentrated again, and the crystal structure of his right arm flowed across his chest, replacing the Heat Blast transformation while his legs remained XLR-8s. Then, with another thought, his left arm transformed into 4 arms red, 4-fingered hand. I can switch parts out without dropping everything, Ben explained proudly. Couldn't do that 3 days ago. Impressive, Gwen admitted. But according to these readings, your energy consumption is still too high. The Omnitrix is working overtime to maintain the transformations. Ben let all the alien traits fade, returning to his human form as the training drones powered down. He wiped sweat from his forehead and dropped onto a bench, breathing heavily. It's getting easier, he said. But it's like learning to use the Omnitrix all over again. Everything works differently. Max descended from the observation deck to join them. Different isn't necessarily bad. These new abilities give you options you didn't have before. That's what Kevin said, Ben replied, taking a water bottle Gwen offered him. Right before he disappeared to who knows where for the past 3 days. Gwen frowned slightly. He's still processing all this. Finding out you can do what makes him special, it's complicated for him. He's avoiding me, Ben said flatly. Just when I could actually use his help with the whole absorption thing. Give him time, Max advised, placing a hand on Ben's shoulder. Kevin will come around. In the meantime, let's review what you've learned so far. Gwen tapped her tablet, bringing up a holographic display of Ben's various partial transformations from recent training sessions. You've successfully combined traits from 11 different aliens. Most stable combinations involve 3 species, though you managed 4 briefly yesterday. Ben nodded. Yeah, but that 4th one gave me a killer headache. The Omnitrix is adapting to its new configuration, Max said. According to Azimuth, it's rewriting some of its basic protocols to accommodate the absorption function. Speaking of Azimuth, Gwen added, he sent over some new data. The energy signature from your Omnitrix is changing. Changing how? Ben asked, suddenly concerned. Gwen enlarged a particular chart on her tablet. It's becoming more integrated with your own biological signature. The boundary between where you end and the Omnitrix begins is blurring. Is that bad? Ben asked, looking down at the device on his wrist. Azimuth isn't sure, Max admitted. This is uncharted territory, even for him. The Omnitrix was designed to keep alien DNA separate from your own, but the absorption function works differently. Ben was about to respond when the plumber base alarm blared to life, red emergency lights flashing throughout the facility. Perimeter breach in Sector 7, a voice announced over the intercom. Unknown alien entity has penetrated outer defenses. Max immediately activated his plumber badge. This is Magister Tennyson. Report. Unidentified ship breached our shields, responded a harried plumber agent. Single occupant, appears to be composed of some kind of liquid metal, Mercuron, Ben interrupted, already on his feet. The guy from the Absorbing Collective. He's after you, Gwen said, her hands glowing with mana in preparation. Ben activated the Omnitrix, the familiar holographic interface appearing above it. Let him try. I'm a lot better with these powers than I was 2 weeks ago. The training room door burst open as several plumbers ran past, weapons drawn. Max quickly joined them, motioning for Ben and Gwen to follow. Stay behind me, Max ordered. If Mercuron is here for Ben, we need to be strategic. They moved through the corridors of the plumber base, following the sounds of battle. When they reached the main atrium, the scene was chaos, plumbers firing at a rippling, silver figure that flowed around their attacks with impossible agility. Mercuron had evolved since their last encounter. His liquid metal form now incorporated various materials and textures, sections resembling stone, wood, and even energy-conducting circuits. He moved like water but struck like steel, disabling plumbers with precise, powerful blows. The Tennyson absorber, Mercuron called out, his fluid face forming into a smile when he spotted Ben. I've come to continue our discussion. Didn't realize we were having one, Ben replied, activating the Omnitrix. He quickly transformed his arms into Heat Blast's fiery limbs, remembering how the heat had affected Mercuron before. Your new abilities are developing nicely, Mercuron observed, flowing around a barrage of plumber fire to approach them. The collective will be most interested in your progress. Gwen erected a mana barrier between Mercuron and their group. He's not going anywhere with you. Of course not, Mercuron agreed, his tone reasonable. I merely wish to observe. To learn. By breaking into our headquarters. Max challenged, his plumber weapon trained on the intruder. Mercuron's liquid form shrugged. Your communication channels ignored my requests for a formal meeting. I was forced to be direct. Ben stepped forward, his fiery hands blazing brighter. You want to observe? Observe this. He launched twin streams of fire at Mercuron, who quickly shifted his composition to include more stone elements, creating a heat-resistant shell. The flames dissipated against the protection, but Ben was ready with his next move. Concentrating, Ben transformed his lower body into XLR-8 speedy form and dashed forward, circling Mercuron at incredible velocity. The resulting vortex lifted the liquid alien off the ground, disrupting his cohesion. Impressive adaptation, Mercuron commented, his voice distorting as his form was stretched by the vortex. But predictable. Tendrils of liquid metal shot out from Mercuron's spinning form, anchoring to the floor and walls. With a mighty heave, he pulled himself back together and sent a wave of metallic spikes in all directions. Gwen barely managed to expand her mana shield to protect the plumbers, while Ben leaped upward, transforming his back into Stinkfly's wings to gain altitude. You're not the only one who's been practicing, Ben called down, hovering above Mercuron. So I see, Mercuron replied. But have you mastered the true potential of absorption? Can you do this? Mercuron's body suddenly shifted, taking on a perfect mirror image of Ben's current hybrid form, fiery arms, insect wings, and speedy legs. What the? Ben gaped in shock. I am an absorber of the highest order, Mercuron explained, his copied wings buzzing as he rose to Ben's level. I can replicate any physical form I observe. The copied fiery arms launched flames at Ben, forcing him to dodge midair. As he evaded, Ben transformed his arms into Diamond Head's crystalline limbs, remembering their effectiveness in the previous encounter. "Let's see you copy this," Ben shouted, firing crystal shards that sliced through Mercuron's liquid metal form. As before, the crystalline material disrupted Mercuron's cohesion, causing parts of his body to lose their mimicked forms. But the alien adapted quickly, his separated portions shifting composition to resist the crystal's effects. "Every challenge makes me stronger," Mercuron declared. "Every adaptation more complete." The battle escalated as more plumbers joined the fray, firing specialized containment weapons. Mercuron flowed between the attacks, absorbing properties from everything he touched: weapons, walls, even the energy beams themselves. Ben landed beside Gwen, quickly shifting his legs back to human form. "We need a plan. He's absorbing faster than I can change." "His liquid form is his weakness," Gwen observed. "When he's spread thin, he can't maintain all those properties at once." Ben nodded. "So we make him overextend." He tapped the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, accessing more of its power. His entire body transformed into a patchwork of alien traits: Heatblast's flames, Diamond Head's crystals, Arctiquana's ice-generating chest, and 4 arms' enhanced strength. "Now that's what I call a combo platter," Ben grinned, his voice a strange mixture of his various alien forms. Mercuron's liquid face registered what might have been surprise. "For simultaneous adaptations, your control has improved dramatically." "You haven't seen anything yet," Ben replied, then unleashed a barrage of attacks: fire, ice, and crystal projectiles all at once, while charging forward with 4 arms' strength. The sensory overload forced Mercuron to continuously adapt, his liquid metal form shifting rapidly to counter each new threat. Ice froze sections of his body, fire superheated others, crystals disrupted his cohesion, and Ben's powerful blows scattered his substance across the atrium. For a moment, it seemed Ben had the upper hand. Mercuron's form became increasingly unstable as he struggled to maintain integrity against the multifaceted assault. Then, without warning, Mercuron stopped resisting. His liquid metal body flowed together into a perfect sphere, pulsing with energy. "What's he doing?" Gwen asked, maintaining her mana shields. Before anyone could respond, the sphere exploded outward, transforming into thousands of tiny droplets that filled the air like a metallic mist. Each droplet contained a fraction of Mercuron's consciousness, coordinating with the others. The cloud of droplets surrounded Ben, attaching to his transformed body. Where they touched, they absorbed a small sample of each alien property. "Get off me!" Ben shouted, trying to burn, freeze, and shake off the persistent droplets. "Your potential is even greater than I imagined," Mercuron's voice came from everywhere and nowhere, the collective droplets vibrating to produce sound. "The collective must study you more thoroughly." Ben felt the Omnitrix pulse erratically as Mercuron's droplets interfaced with it, causing feedback that sent spasms of pain through his body. "Ben!" Gwen cried out, trying to use her mana to repel the metallic cloud. Through the pain, Ben focused on the Omnitrix. If Mercuron wanted to absorb his powers, maybe he could use that connection against him. Concentrating, Ben accessed a new alien form, Feedback, with his energy absorption abilities. Black and white patterns spread across Ben's skin, replacing his previous transformations. Feedback's antenna and plugs emerged from his body, crackling with electricity. "Let's see how you like a taste of your own medicine," Ben grunted, then began absorbing energy directly from Mercuron's metallic droplets. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Mercuron's scattered form convulsed as Ben drained power from the countless tiny fragments. One by one, the droplets lost cohesion, falling to the floor as inert puddles of liquid metal. "Impossible," Mercuron's weakening voice vibrated through the remaining droplets. "You're absorbing my absorption energy. Ironic, isn't it?" Ben replied, continuing to drain power until the last of Mercuron's active droplets collapsed. The puddles of liquid metal slowly flowed back together, reforming into a much diminished version of Mercuron. His once imposing form now seemed smaller, less substantial, with a dull sheen instead of his previous mercurial brilliance. "You have exceeded all projections," Mercuron said, his voice weaker. "The collective will be most intrigued." Plumbers surrounded the weakened alien, containment units ready. Max stepped forward, his expression stern. "You're not reporting to anyone. You've attacked a plumber facility and attempted to harm my grandson. That earns you a nice, isolated cell." Mercuron's liquid face formed what might have been a smile. "I've already transmitted all my observations. My physical capture is inconsequential." Before anyone could respond, a high-pitched whine filled the air. Mercuron's body began to vibrate at molecular frequencies. "Containment field, now!" Max shouted, but it was too late. Mercuron's form dissolved into a fine silver mist that slipped through the plumber's containment beams and disappeared into the ventilation system. "He's escaping," a plumber called out. "Let him go," Ben said, returning fully to human form. The multiple transformations had left him exhausted. He got what he came for, information. Max ordered teams to search the base perimeter, but everyone knew Mercuron was likely long gone. As the plumbers dispersed to secure the facility, Ben slumped against a wall, his energy depleted. "You okay?" Gwen asked, kneeling beside him. "Just tired," Ben replied. Holding 4 transformations at once, then using feedback to drain him, it took a lot out of me. "But you won," Gwen pointed out. "You beat him at his own game." Ben nodded wearily. "For now. But he's reporting back to this collective. Something tells me they're not going to give up so easily." Max joined them, concern evident on his weathered face. "You pushed yourself too hard, Ben. Azimuth warned about overtaxing the modified Omnitrix." "I had to," Ben argued. Mercuron was getting stronger by the second. "If I hadn't gone all out," he was interrupted by the Omnitrix suddenly sparking, purple energy crackling around its surface. Ben grimaced as pain shot up his arm. "Ben!" Gwen exclaimed. "I'm fine," he gasped, though his pale face suggested otherwise. "Just, after effects." The Omnitrix stabilized after a moment, its glow returning to the now familiar purple-tinged green. Ben flexed his fingers, making sure everything still worked properly. "We need to run a full diagnostic," Max decided. "Let's get you to the med bay." As they helped Ben to his feet, a plumber agent rushed over, looking urgently at Max. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from Kevin Levin. He says it's an emergency." "Put him through," Max ordered. A holographic display appeared from the agent's badge, showing Kevin's face. He looked disheveled, with a cut on his cheek and what appeared to be a partially absorbed metal covering on his left arm. "About time," Kevin exclaimed. "I've been trying to reach you for hours." "Kevin? What happened to you?" Gwen asked, concern evident in her voice. "Got jumped by some weirdo calling himself Dr. Psychoboss," Kevin replied, glancing nervously over his shoulder as if expecting another attack. "Cerebral crustacean with a superiority complex. Said he was looking for Ben and his fascinating new adaptation." Ben straightened, suddenly alert despite his exhaustion. "Another one?" "We just dealt with Mercuron here." "Coordinated attacks," Max surmised grimly. "They're coming after Ben from multiple angles." "Not just Ben," Kevin corrected. "This crab guy was plenty interested in me too. Said something about comparative absorption methodologies before he tried to fry my brain." "Where are you now?" Gwen asked. "Abandoned subway tunnel, about 5 miles east of Bellwood," Kevin replied. "Lost him for now, but I don't think he's given up. My car's toast, so I could use a lift." "We'll send a team immediately," Max assured him. "Stay hidden and keep your badge active so we can track you." Kevin nodded, then the transmission cut out abruptly, leaving them staring at static. "Kevin?" Gwen called, but there was no response. "His badge is still active, the plumber agent reported, checking a tracking display. Signal location confirmed in the eastern tunnels. Max immediately began issuing orders, assembling a rescue team. Ben pushed himself off the wall, the Omnitrix now stable again. "I'm going too," he declared. "Ben, you're exhausted," Gwen protested. "You need to rest and let the Omnitrix stabilize." "Kevin's in trouble because of me," Ben insisted. "These aliens, or whatever they are targeting him because he has absorption powers like I do now. I'm not sitting this out." Max recognized the determined look in his grandson's eyes. "All right, but you're not going alone. Gwen and I are coming with you, along with a full plumber squad." Ben nodded gratefully. "Thanks, Grandpa." As the rescue team assembled, Ben couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. First Mercuron, now this Dr. Psychoboss, both interested in absorption abilities. It couldn't be coincidence. "Gwen," he said quietly as they boarded a plumber transport vehicle, "I think we're missing something bigger here." "Why the sudden interest in absorption powers?" Gwen frowned thoughtfully. "The timing does seem suspicious. Right after you gain these new abilities, all these collectors and scientists appear. Could someone be coordinating them?" Ben wondered. "Sending them after us?" "We'll figure it out after we find Kevin," Gwen replied, though her worried expression matched Ben's own. The plumber transport sped through Bellwood toward the abandoned subway tunnels, its sirens silent to avoid alerting potential hostiles. Ben sat quietly, focusing on regaining his strength while the Omnitrix continued its subtle pulsing. When they reached the tunnel entrance, Max divided the team into search patterns, with Ben, Gwen, and himself forming the central group. The abandoned subway was dark and damp, with crumbling infrastructure and years of accumulated debris. "Kevin's signal is coming from about half a mile in," a plumber technician reported. "Stationary for the past 20 minutes. "That could be good or bad," Ben muttered as they moved deeper into the tunnels, lights illuminating their path. The deeper they went, the more Ben noticed strange markings on the tunnel walls, patterns that looked almost like circuit boards etched into the concrete. Occasionally, they passed odd devices attached to support beams, emitting faint electromagnetic fields. "Someone's been busy down here," Max observed, scanning one of the devices. "These are neural pulse generators. Advanced tech, not from Earth." "What do they do?" Ben asked. "Affect brain patterns," Max explained grimly. "Could be for mind control, memory extraction, or worse." Gwen's hands glowed with mana, casting additional light ahead. "I'm sensing Kevin nearby, but something's wrong. His energy is fluctuating." They rounded a corner and found themselves in a larger chamber that had once been a subway station. The space had been transformed into a makeshift laboratory, with equipment lining the walls and a central platform where, "Kevin!" Gwen cried out. Kevin lay strapped to an examination table, unconscious. His body was partially transformed, with various materials absorbed into different sections, metal on his arms, stone on his torso, and what looked like crystal on his legs. Electrodes connected him to machinery that hummed with power. Standing over him was a creature unlike anything Ben had seen before. It resembled a blue crab with an oversized cranium and mechanical enhancements, including what appeared to be a battery attached to the top of its head. "Dr. Psychoboss, I presume?" Ben called out, the Omnitrix already activating as he prepared for battle. The crab alien turned, mechanical pincers clicking. "Ah, B. Ben Tennyson. I was beginning to think my B-bait wouldn't attract you." His voice had a distinctive stutter that emphasized certain consonants. "Let Kevin go," Ben demanded, transforming his arms into Diamond Head's crystalline limbs. "After I've barely begun my analysis." "I think not," Psychoboss replied. "His absorption abilities are fascinating, if primitive. But yours?" His eyes focused on the Omnitrix. "Yours are the true prize." Plumbers spread out around the chamber, weapons trained on the crustacean scientist. Max stepped forward. "You're outnumbered," Psychoboss. Release him and surrender. Psychoboss chuckled, a grating sound. Outnumbered does not mean outmatched, especially when one possesses a superior intellect. He pressed a button on his control panel, and the neural devices they had passed in the tunnels activated simultaneously. High-frequency waves pulsed through the chamber, causing the plumbers to cry out in pain, clutching their heads as they collapsed to the floor. Ben felt the neural assault too, but his partially transformed state seemed to provide some protection. Beside him, Gwen created a mana bubble to shield herself and Max from the worst effects. Interesting, Psychoboss observed. Your hybrid state offers resistance to my neural D-disruptor. Another fascinating attribute to study. Ben charged forward, crystal arms formed into blades. The only thing you'll be studying is the inside of a plumber cell. Psychoboss moved with surprising speed for his ungainly form, mechanical pincers crackling with electricity as they snapped at Ben. Your bravado is as predictable as it is tedious. As they clashed, Gwen extended her mana shield to reach Kevin, trying to disconnect him from the machinery. Max recovered enough to provide covering fire, keeping Psychoboss distracted. Ben found himself pressed harder than expected. Despite his awkward appearance, Psychoboss was a dangerous opponent. His electrical attacks carried enough voltage to temporarily disrupt Ben's transformations, forcing him to constantly adapt. You rely too much on brute force, Psychoboss taunted, landing a painful pincer strike that sent Ben stumbling backward. A superior intellect understands the value of precision. Ben transformed his chest into Feedback's energy-absorbing form just in time to catch Psychoboss's next electrical blast. Thanks for the power-up, he grinned, redirecting the energy back at the crustacean. Psychoboss skittered sideways, avoiding the counterattack. Adaptive response. Excellent. My D-data collection proceeds nicely. This isn't a science experiment. Ben shouted, launching forward with a combination of Diamond Head's crystal arms and XLR-8 speed. On the contrary, Psychoboss replied calmly, everything is a science experiment to a mind as brilliant as mine. As Ben and Psychoboss continued their battle, Gwen finally reached Kevin, her mana dissolving the restraints holding him. Kevin. Can you hear me? She called, trying to rouse him. Kevin's eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then sharpening as recognition dawned. Gwen. What happened? Dr. Psychoboss happened, she explained quickly, helping him sit up. Can you move? Kevin looked down at his partially transformed body, different materials absorbed into different sections. He was experimenting on me. Testing how my absorption works. His voice hardened with anger. Using me like a lab rat. Across the chamber, Ben was gaining the upper hand against Psychoboss, his multiple transformations allowing him to counter the scientist's attacks from various angles. Frustrated, Psychoboss backed toward a control console. This encounter has provided sufficient preliminary D-data, he declared. A strategic withdrawal is now appropriate. You're not going anywhere. Ben shouted, closing in. Psychoboss pressed a sequence of buttons on the console. I disagree. The floor beneath Ben suddenly opened, revealing a pit filled with swirling energy. Ben transformed one arm into Spider-Monkey's limb, firing a web strand to catch himself before he fell in. Predictable, Psychoboss sighed, activating another control. The web anchor point electrified, sending current down the strand that forced Ben to release it. As Ben fell, he quickly transformed his back into Stinkfly's wings, catching himself midair and hovering above the energy pit. Also predictable, Psychoboss noted, pressing a final button. The pit erupted with a focused energy beam that struck Ben directly, overwhelming his transformations. Pain lanced through his body as the Omnitrix sparked and glitched, struggling to maintain his alien forms. Ben! Max shouted, firing at Psychoboss repeatedly. The crustacean scientist deflected the shots with an energy shield while continuing to observe Ben's reaction to the beam with clinical interest. Fascinating. The Omnitrix attempts to compensate by cycling through available DNA samples. Such a persistent device. Ben fought through the pain, focusing on the Omnitrix. If the energy beam was affecting his transformations, maybe he could use that. Concentrating, he accessed one of his most resilient aliens, Chromastone, with his energy absorption and redirection abilities. Purple crystalline pattern spread across Ben's body, replacing his other transformations. The energy beam that had been causing him pain now fueled him, charging his crystalline form with power. Oh, Psychoboss muttered, recognizing the transformation. My turn, Ben declared, absorbing the full force of the beam before redirecting it at Psychoboss's control console. The resulting explosion threw Psychoboss backward, his mechanical enhancement sparking from the overload. As the smoke cleared, the crustacean scientist lay dazed among the wreckage of his equipment. Ben landed beside the pit, his Chromastone transformation receding to leave him fully human again. Not so superior now, huh? Psychoboss struggled to right himself, his battery attachment flickering erratically. A temporary setback. Science is full of such inconveniences. Before anyone could apprehend him, Psychoboss activated a device on his pincer. A blinding flash filled the chamber, and when it cleared, the alien scientist had vanished. Teleportation, Max observed grimly. Short range, most likely. He couldn't have gone far. Ben wanted to pursue, but exhaustion from the multiple transformations and energy beam was catching up to him. He swayed on his feet, the Omnitrix once again pulsing erratically. Ben! Gwen called out in concern, supporting Kevin as they approached. I'm okay, Ben assured them, though the dark circles under his eyes suggested otherwise. How's Kevin? Kevin had managed to revert most of his body back to normal, though patches of absorbed material still clung to his skin in places. Been better. That crab freak messed with my absorption somehow. It's like I can't fully control what I've already absorbed. Max examined Kevin's condition while the recovered plumber secured the area and began dismantling Psychoboss's equipment. We'll get you both back to headquarters. Our medical team can, wait, Kevin interrupted, his expression darkening. Before you showed up, Psychoboss was talking. Said something about working with a partner. A partner? Ben repeated, suddenly alert despite his fatigue. Did he say who? Kevin shook his head. No names, but he mentioned delivering samples to someone who's very interested in both our absorption abilities. Someone who's been studying the phenomenon for years. Mercuron mentioned the Absorbing Collective, Gwen recalled. Could they be behind all this? Maybe, Max said thoughtfully. Or maybe there's another player we haven't identified yet. As they made their way out of the tunnels, Ben couldn't shake the feeling that these attacks were just the beginning of something larger. The coincidence was too perfect, gaining new absorption powers, then immediately being targeted by multiple enemies interested in those exact abilities. It's like someone's been waiting for this, he muttered to himself. Like they've been planning for it. Back at Plumber headquarters, Ben and Kevin underwent thorough medical examinations. Kevin's condition was concerning. The forced absorption Psychoboss had subjected him to had left his powers unstable, with materials randomly shifting across his body without conscious control. It's like having a bad itch you can't scratch, Kevin explained in frustration as another patch of metal spontaneously appeared on his shoulder, then faded to stone. I can feel it moving under my skin. The plumber doctors administered stabilizing treatments, but progress was slow. Ben, meanwhile, discovered that his encounter with Psychoboss's energy beam had actually strengthened the Omnitrix's absorption functions. His transformations came more easily now, with greater control and reduced energy consumption. It's like the Omnitrix adapted to the attack, Ben explained to Gwen as they watched Kevin undergo another treatment. It's learning from each challenge. That's both impressive and concerning, Gwen replied. If it's constantly evolving, how do we know where it will end up? Before Ben could respond, his phone rang. The caller ID showed Julie's name. Hey, Julie, Ben answered, trying to sound more energetic than he felt. Sorry I missed our date last night. Things got complicated. When don't they? Julie's voice came through, a mixture of understanding and mild annoyance. I'm used to it by now. But listen, I need your help with something weird. Ben straightened, immediately alert. Weird how? There's this guy hanging around the tennis courts, Julie explained. Silver, kinda fluid looking. He keeps asking questions about you and your watch. Ben's blood ran cold. Mercuron. Julie, where are you right now? At the Bellwood Sports Complex. My team has a practice match in 20 minutes. Listen to me very carefully, Ben said, his voice deadly serious. That guy is dangerous. Get away from the courts right now. Find a public place with lots of people and stay there until I come get you. Ben, what's going? Just do it, please. I'm on my way. Ben ended the call and turned to Gwen, who had already picked up on his alarm. Mercuron's at the tennis courts, talking to Julie. I'll drive, Gwen said immediately, grabbing her keys. Kevin needs to stay here and finish his treatment anyway. They rushed to the parking garage, where Gwen's car waited. As they sped toward the Bellwood Sports Complex, Ben tried calling Julie again, but the call went straight to voicemail. She's not answering, he said, anxiety building. I shouldn't have let Mercuron escape earlier. I knew he wouldn't give up. Don't blame yourself, Gwen replied, taking a corner faster than was strictly legal. We'll get to her in time. When they arrived at the sports complex, the tennis courts were eerily quiet. Julie's team bag lay abandoned beside a bench, her racket on the ground nearby as if dropped in haste. Julie. Ben called out, scanning the area. Julie, are you here? Gwen's hands glowed with mana as she reached out with her energy-sensing abilities. I can feel traces of her. And, something else. Something not human. Mercuron, Ben growled, the Omnitrix activating in response to his emotions. A glint of silver caught his eye, a small puddle of liquid metal near the fence. As Ben approached, the puddle moved, forming into a miniature version of Mercuron's face. The absorber returns, the tiny face spoke in Mercuron's voice. How predictable. Where is she? Ben demanded, his arms transforming into heat blast's fiery limbs without conscious thought. What have you done with Julie? Your companion is unharmed, the liquid metal face replied. For now. The Collector wishes to speak with you directly, without the interference of your plumber allies. The Collector? Gwen questioned. Who's that? The face smiled, an unsettling expression in liquid metal. My superior. The one who directs the absorbing collective. He has taken a personal interest in your case, Ben Tennyson. Let Julie go, Ben demanded. She has nothing to do with this. On the contrary, Mercuron's voice replied. Her connection to you makes her quite valuable. The Collector understands the power of motivation. Ben's flames burned brighter with his anger. If he hurts her, no harm will come to her if you cooperate, the face interrupted. Come alone to these coordinates. A series of numbers appeared in the liquid metal. You have 3 hours. Come alone, or the Collector's interest may become less benevolent. The puddle collapsed back into an inert state, the coordinates still visible for a moment before they too dissolved away. You memorized those? Ben asked Gwen, who nodded grimly. They're spatial coordinates for orbit around Jupiter's moon Europa, she said. The Collector has a ship there. Ben was already activating the Omnitrix. I need to go now. I'll use Jetray to, Ben, wait, Gwen grabbed his arm. This is obviously a trap. The Collector, whoever they are, wants your absorption abilities. Maybe even the Omnitrix itself. I don't have a choice, Ben replied. He has Julie. At least let me contact Grandpa Max. The plumbers can, no, Ben cut her off. You heard Mercuron. If I don't go alone, Julie could get hurt. Gwen's expression hardened. Then I'm going with you. I'll stay hidden, but you need backup. Ben hesitated, then nodded. Alright, but we need to be careful. This collector sounds like bad news. Let me make one call first, Gwen insisted. Not to Grandpa, but to Kevin. He deserves to know what's happening, and he might have insights about this absorbing collective. While Gwen made the call, Ben examined the spot where Mercuron's messenger puddle had been. Nothing remained but a small stain on the concrete. His mind raced with worry for Julie and questions about this mysterious collector. Kevin's on his way, Gwen reported, ending her call. He says his treatments were almost finished anyway. But Mercuron said to come alone, Ben protested. And you will, Gwen replied. Kevin and I will follow at a distance. A safe distance, she added when Ben opened his mouth to object further. 20 minutes later, Kevin arrived, looking much better than he had at the plumber base. The random material shifts had subsided, though he still had a patch of metal on his left forearm that wouldn't fully revert. So this collector guy nabbed your girlfriend, Kevin summarized after they brought him up to speed. And now he wants you to deliver yourself and your shiny new absorption powers to his doorstep. Sounds like a fantastic plan. You have a better one? Ben challenged. Yeah, actually. We go in together, weapons hot, and take this collector creep down before he knows what hit him. And risk Julie getting hurt? Ben shook his head. No way. Look, Kevin said, his tone softening slightly. I get it. You're worried about Julie. But walking into this guy's trap alone is suicide. I won't be alone, Ben replied, tapping the Omnitrix. I've got 10,000 aliens on my side. Plus whatever new combos I can come up with. Kevin ran a hand through his hair in frustration. You're missing the point. This collector has been planning this. He sent Mercuron after you, probably that psychoboss freak after me. He's studied our abilities. He's prepared. All the more reason for you two to stay back, Ben insisted. If something goes wrong, I need to know there's a rescue plan. Gwen and Kevin exchanged looks, realizing Ben wouldn't be dissuaded. Fine, Kevin finally conceded. But we're taking my backup ship. It has stealth tech that should keep us off their sensors. You have a backup ship? Gwen asked, raising an eyebrow. Kevin shrugged. Guys gotta have options. It's in a storage unit outside town. Not as fast as my main ride, but it'll get us to Europa. As they headed for Kevin's storage facility, Ben remained quiet, his mind on Julie. The idea of her in danger because of him was almost unbearable. He'd faced countless threats to Earth and the galaxy, but this felt different, more personal, more targeted. Kevin's backup ship turned out to be a refurbished plumber scout vessel, modified with various alien technologies of questionable legality. It was smaller than Ben expected, roughly the size of a school bus, with sleek lines and a dark hull that seemed to absorb light. Impressive, Gwen commented as they boarded. And entirely against plumber regulations, I'm sure. Hey, I'm a legitimate mechanic now, Kevin defended himself, activating the ship's systems. Most of these mods are, technically legal. In some sectors. The interior was cramped but efficient, with a cockpit that seated 3 and a small cargo area converted into living quarters. Kevin took the pilot's seat, with Gwen beside him and Ben standing behind. This thing can make it to Europa in 3 hours? Ben asked skeptically. Kevin grinned. 2, if I push it. Got a modified quantum drive I liberated from a Galvan research facility. Of course you did, Gwen sighed. As the ship rose silently into the night sky, rapidly accelerating beyond Earth's atmosphere, Ben couldn't help wondering what they were flying into. The Collector, the Absorbing Collective, Mercuron, Psychoboss, all suddenly appearing after his Omnitrix changed. The coincidence seemed increasingly suspicious. What do we actually know about this Absorbing Collective? He asked as Earth shrank behind them, the ship's engines humming with power. Not much, Kevin admitted. They're not in any official plumber databases. But I've heard rumors in the underground tech markets. Supposedly they're a group that studies and collects unique absorption abilities throughout the galaxy. Collects how? Gwen asked. Kevin's expression darkened. By any means necessary, from what I've heard. Some say they experiment on absorbers to enhance their abilities. Others say they harvest them somehow. Harvest? Ben repeated, not liking the sound of that at all. Extract the absorption mechanism, whether it's biological, technological, or energy-based, Kevin explained. Not a process the subjects typically survive. An uncomfortable silence fell over the cockpit. Ben stared out at the stars streaking by, the reality of what they might be facing sinking in. They won't touch Julie, he said finally, his voice hard with determination. Whatever it takes, I'm getting her out of there. We will, Gwen corrected him, placing a hand on his arm. Together. The journey to Europa passed intense preparation. Kevin briefed them on the ship's capabilities, including its stealth systems and escape pods. Gwen prepared spell components for her more powerful magical attacks. Ben practiced switching between alien transformations, working on reducing the energy cost and transition time. As they approached Jupiter's orbit, the gas giant's massive presence dominating the viewscreen, Kevin activated the ship's stealth systems. The lights dimmed and the engine noise reduced to a barely audible hum. We're running silent now, Kevin explained. Minimal power, thermal masking, and energy dampeners active. Should make us invisible to most scanning tech. Europa came into view, its ice-covered surface reflecting Jupiter's light. In orbit around the moon, a massive structure became visible, not a ship as they had expected, but a space station of incredible proportions. That's not a ship, Ben said, staring at the structure in awe. It's a whole station. The station resembled a massive wheel with spokes connecting to a central hub. But unlike most space stations, this one appeared almost organic in design, with sections that seemed to pulse and shift. The outer ring was dotted with what looked like observation domes and docking ports for smaller vessels. Picking up massive energy readings, Kevin reported, checking the sensors. That thing's got more power than a small planet. And those readings, they're all over the spectrum. Different types of energy I've never seen combined before. Can you locate Julie? Ben asked. Gwen closed her eyes, her hands glowing softly with mana as she reached out with her powers. I sense her, she's alive and doesn't seem to be in immediate danger. She's in the central hub. Ben nodded, relieved that Julie was at least unharmed for now. All right. Here's the plan. I go in through the main docking port like they're expecting. Once I'm inside and have their attention, you two sneak in through a secondary entrance and find Julie. While you do what, exactly? Kevin asked. Chat with this collector guy until he decides to add you to his collection. I'll stall, Ben replied. Find out what he knows about the Omnitrix's new powers. Maybe even learn how to control them better. Gwen looked skeptical. And if he tries to harvest your absorption abilities? Ben tapped the Omnitrix. Then he'll get more than he bargained for. Kevin guided the ship toward the station, keeping a safe distance while remaining in stealth mode. A larger docking port on the outer ring was illuminated, clearly meant for Ben's arrival. That's my stop, Ben said, moving toward the ship's airlock. Give me 30 minutes to get inside and locate this collector. Then make your move. How will we communicate? Gwen asked. They'll probably scan for tech. Ben thought for a moment. Kevin, you still have that Galvan neural link from the Vulpin mission? Kevin raised an eyebrow. Yeah, but it's not exactly comfortable to use. It's also practically undetectable, Ben pointed out. We can link our thoughts directly. No tech to scan. Reluctantly, Kevin retrieved a small case from a storage compartment. Inside were 3 tiny, silver discs. Press it against your temple. It adheres to the skin and links with your brain's electrical patterns. To communicate, just think clearly and direct the thought toward the person you want to reach. They each applied a disc, wincing at the brief sharp sensation as the neural link activated. Can you hear me? Ben thought, directing it toward both Gwen and Kevin. Loud and clear, Kevin's thoughts came back. Still feels weird. Be careful, Ben, Gwen's mental voice added. Don't take unnecessary risks. Ben nodded, moving to the airlock. 30 minutes. Then come find Julie. Kevin activated a small shuttle bay, allowing Ben to exit in a personal transport pod barely larger than an escape pod. The tiny vessel detached from the main ship and drifted toward the illuminated docking port, its minimal propulsion making it appear like an expected guest rather than an infiltrator. As Ben approached the station, he couldn't help feeling like he was voluntarily entering the lion's den. But with Julie's safety at stake, he had no choice but to play along, at least until he could turn the tables on this mysterious collector. The docking port opened automatically as Ben's pod approached, a tractor beam guiding it into a pressurized bay. Once inside, the external doors sealed, and atmosphere flooded the chamber. A soft chime indicated it was safe to exit the pod. Ben stepped out cautiously, the Omnitrix ready on his wrist. The docking bay was surprisingly elegant, more like a luxury spacecraft hangar than a utilitarian port. The walls gleamed with a pearlescent material that seemed to shift colors subtly as Ben moved. Welcome, Ben Tennyson, a voice echoed through the chamber. The collector awaits you in the central observatory. Please follow the illuminated path. Strips of soft blue light appeared on the floor, creating a trail leading from the docking bay into the station proper. Ben followed warily, keeping his senses alert for any sign of a trap or ambush. The path led through corridors that seemed to be alive, walls pulsing gently with bioluminescent patterns, floors that adjusted to his stride, and ceilings that shifted transparency to reveal the stars above. It was beautiful and unsettling at the same time. After several minutes of walking, Ben emerged into a vast circular chamber that took his breath away. The observatory was a massive dome with completely transparent walls, offering a 360-degree view of space. Jupiter dominated one side, its swirling storms and bands clearly visible, while Europa's icy surface reflected light below. Stars filled the remaining vista, more vivid and numerous than Ben had ever seen from Earth. In the center of the chamber stood a single figure, back turned to Ben as it gazed out at Jupiter. The figure was humanoid but clearly alien, tall and slender, with skin that seemed to shift and ripple like Mercuron's liquid metal form, but with greater solidity and definition. Beautiful, isn't it? The figure spoke without turning. Its voice was melodic and resonant, with an odd quality that made it impossible to identify as male or female. The gas giant and its frozen moon, locked in their eternal dance. Power and preservation in perfect balance. Where's Julie? Ben demanded, not interested in astronomical observations. The figure turned slowly. Its face was vaguely humanoid but with no distinct features, more an impression of eyes, nose, and mouth than actual organs. The skin continued its subtle shifting, occasionally revealing glimpses of different textures and patterns beneath the surface. Direct and protective, the figure observed. As expected. Your companion is quite safe, I assure you. Mercuron tends toward dramatic motivation techniques that I find unnecessary. I want to see her, Ben insisted. The figure, presumably the collector, made a fluid gesture with one hand. A section of the floor opened, and a platform rose, carrying Julie. She appeared unharmed but confused, her tennis outfit still on from practice. Ben, she called out when she saw him. What is going on? This silver guy said you were in trouble, then suddenly I'm on a space station. Are you okay? Ben asked, taking a step toward her before stopping, wary of triggering some trap. I'm fine, Julie assured him. Just seriously freaked out. Where are we? Europa, Ben replied, not taking his eyes off the collector. Jupiter's moon. Jupiter? Julie repeated incredulously. As in the planet? I've been kidnapped to another planet. The collector made another gesture, and an invisible barrier shimmered into existence around Julie's platform. A precaution, it explained. To ensure our conversation remains focused. Let her go, Ben demanded. She's got nothing to do with this. In due time, the collector replied calmly. First, we have much to discuss, you and I. About your fascinating new abilities. Ben's hand hovered near the Omnitrix. You went to a lot of trouble to get me here. Why not just ask for a meeting like a normal person? Would you have come? The collector asked, head tilting curiously. Probably not, Ben admitted. Precisely. The collector moved closer, its fluid motion almost hypnotic. I am not your enemy, Ben Tennyson. I am a researcher, a preservationist of unique abilities. And your recent evolution has created something truly unprecedented. The absorption powers, Ben said. Indeed. The collector circled Ben slowly, studying him from all angles. An Omnitrix modified to absorb and combine genetic traits rather than fully express them. A quantum leap in its functionality that even its creator did not anticipate. Ben tensed as the collector moved, but no attack came. How do you know so much about the Omnitrix? I know about all significant absorption technologies in the galaxy, the collector replied. It is my area of expertise, my passion. I have studied the Omnitrix from afar since its creation. But now, it gestured to Ben's wrist, now it has become something far more interesting. Because it absorbs instead of transforms, Ben concluded. Precisely. And not merely absorbs, but selectively implements and combines genetic traits. A feat no natural absorber has ever achieved. Ben thought of Kevin, who could absorb multiple materials but couldn't combine them in the way Ben now could with alien DNA. So what do you want from me? A demonstration? The collector's featureless face somehow conveyed amusement. I have observed your capabilities through Mercuron's encounters. What I desire is more substantial. If you're thinking about harvesting my abilities, you can forget it, Ben said firmly, mentally calculating how quickly he could transform and free Julie. Harvesting? The collector seemed genuinely surprised. Is that what you believe I do? How barbaric. No, Ben Tennyson. I seek to understand, to preserve, to perfect absorption abilities. Not to destroy them. Then what exactly do you want from me? The collector gestured, and the chamber's lighting shifted. Holographic displays appeared around them, showing various alien species with absorption abilities, some Ben recognized, others completely unfamiliar. I want you to join my collective, the collector explained. To contribute your knowledge and abilities to our understanding. To help perfect the art of absorption across the galaxy. Join you? Ben repeated skeptically. You kidnapped my girlfriend to recruit me? A regrettable necessity, the collector admitted. Your reputation suggested you would not consider my offer without motivation. Ben glanced at Julie, who was watching the exchange with a mixture of confusion and anger. He needed to keep the collector talking while Gwen and Kevin got into position. Gwen, Kevin, he thought through the neural link. I'm in the central observatory with the collector and Julie. Julie's in some kind of containment field. We're inside, came Kevin's reply. Minimal security on the maintenance access ports. This place is weird, like the station itself is alive somehow. Working our way toward you, Gwen added. Need about 10 more minutes. Ben refocused on the collector. Tell me more about this collective of yours. Who exactly are you people? The collector seemed pleased by the question. We are scientists, researchers, and absorbers from across the galaxy, united by our fascination with the phenomenon. For millennia, we have studied how different species and technologies harness the ability to absorb and implement external properties. The holographic displays shifted, showing more aliens and devices with various absorption capabilities. Some absorb energy, the collector continued, indicating a gaseous being consuming a star's radiation. Others absorb matter. The display showed a creature similar to Kevin, touching and taking on the properties of different materials. Still others absorb more abstract qualities, knowledge, skills, even consciousness itself. And what about you? Ben asked. What do you absorb? The collector's form rippled more intensely, revealing glimpses of countless different textures and patterns beneath its surface. I am the ultimate expression of absorption, capable of assimilating any property I encounter, be it physical, energetic, or conceptual. As if to demonstrate, the collector's arm transformed, taking on the appearance of Diamond Head's crystalline structure. Another section shifted to resemble Heatblast's fiery composition, while its legs became reminiscent of XLR8's streamlined form. I've had millennia to perfect my abilities, the collector explained. To become the living embodiment of absorption itself. Ben's eyes widened as he realized what he was seeing. You're copying my aliens. How is that possible without the Omnitrix? I don't copy, the collector corrected. I observe, analyze, and recreate. Any property I witness becomes part of my collected arsenal. Kevin, Gwen, Ben thought urgently. This guy is dangerous. He can copy absorption abilities just by seeing them. Almost to you, Gwen replied. We found a maintenance shaft that should come out near your position. Ben needed to keep the collector distracted. So if your collective is so advanced, why do you need me? Sounds like you've already mastered absorption better than I have. Because the Omnitrix represents a new frontier, the collector replied. A technological approach to genetic absorption that could revolutionize our understanding. And you, Ben Tennyson, are uniquely positioned to explore that frontier. As a test subject, you mean? As a valued colleague, the collector countered. Your experiences with the modified Omnitrix could provide insights that advance our collective knowledge immeasurably. Ben glanced at Julie again. She had moved to the edge of her containment field, watching and listening intently. He needed just a little more time. Let's say I'm interested, Ben said, taking a step closer to the collector. What exactly would joining your collective involve? The collector's form seemed to brighten with excitement. You would divide your time between Earth and our various research facilities. You would document the development of your abilities, participate in controlled experiments to test their limits, and collaborate with other absorbers to explore new applications. And in return, you would gain access to the accumulated knowledge of thousands of years of absorption research. Techniques to enhance your control, expand your capacity, and perfect your implementation. You would evolve your abilities beyond anything you could achieve alone. It didn't sound as sinister as Ben had expected, but something still felt off. The kidnapping, the secretive approach, Mercuron's aggressive tactics, they didn't align with the collector's reasonable-sounding offer. In position, came Kevin's mental voice. Northeast corner of the observatory, maintenance access. We can see you and Julie. On my signal, Ben replied. Aloud, he said, before I consider your offer, I need Julie released. Immediately. The collector studied Ben for a moment, then nodded. A reasonable request. But first, a demonstration of good faith on your part. Show me your current mastery of the Omnitrix's absorption function. Ben hesitated, then activated the device. What do you want to see? Your most complex combination, the collector requested. Show me the full extent of what you've learned. Ben concentrated, accessing multiple alien forms simultaneously. His right arm transformed into Diamond Head's crystalline structure, while his left became Heatblast's fiery limb. His torso took on Feedback's energy-conducting patterns, and his legs transformed into XLR8's speedy form. Finally, his back sprouted Stinkfly's wings. The Omnitrix pulsed as it maintained the complex transformation, but Ben had practiced enough that the strain was manageable. He hovered slightly above the floor, demonstrating the full combination. Impressive, the collector observed, circling Ben with obvious fascination. 5 distinct genetic expressions simultaneously, with full functionality of each component. Your control has advanced remarkably in such a short time. Thanks, Ben replied, maintaining the transformation. Now about Julie. Of course. The collector gestured, and the barrier around Julie's platform disappeared. A demonstration of my good faith, as promised. Julie immediately started toward Ben, but before she could reach him, the collector moved with blinding speed, placing itself between them. However, it continued, I require one more thing before we conclude our business. What? Ben demanded, tensing for action. A sample, the collector said, reaching toward the Omnitrix symbol on Ben's chest. Just a small one, to begin my analysis. Now. Ben thought through the neural link. The maintenance access panel in the corner of the observatory burst open. Kevin emerged first, his body covered in the metallic material he'd absorbed from the station's walls. Gwen followed, her hands glowing with mana energy. Get away from him. Gwen shouted, launching mana discs at the collector. The collector moved with fluid grace, avoiding the projectiles as if they were moving in slow motion. Ah, the anodite and the material absorber. I was wondering when you would join us. Ben used the distraction to grab Julie and propel them both away from the collector using XLR-8 speed. Are you okay? He asked her quickly. Been better, Julie replied, eyes wide as she took in Ben's multi-alien form. New trick? Long story, Ben said, positioning himself protectively in front of her. Kevin charged the collector, fists morphed into hammers. Let's see how you like some absorption up close and personal. The collector simply flowed around Kevin's attacks, its body rippling to avoid contact. Primitive technique, it commented. Effective, but unrefined. Gwen created a mana cage around the collector, trying to contain it. For a moment, it seemed to work, the energy barrier held the fluid being in place. Then the collector's form shifted, taking on properties similar to Gwen's mana. Fascinating energy, it observed, touching the cage walls. Anodite mana, a form of life energy manipulation. Thank you for the demonstration. The cage dissolved as the collector absorbed its properties, adding the pink energy patterns to its shifting form. That's not good, Kevin muttered. Ben launched forward, using XLR-8 speed and Diamondhead's arm formed into a blade. Get Julie out of here, he called to Gwen and Kevin. The collector met Ben's charge with surprising strength, catching the crystal blade between morphing hands. So much potential, it said, almost fondly. But still so much to learn. With a fluid motion, the collector redirected Ben's momentum, sending him crashing into a control panel. As Ben recovered, the collector turned toward Kevin and Gwen, who were moving Julie toward the maintenance shaft. I'm afraid I cannot allow you to leave just yet, the collector said, raising its hands. The entire observatory seemed to respond to the gesture, floor panels shifting, walls flowing like liquid, the very structure of the station reconfiguring to block their escape route. The station is alive. Gwen exclaimed. Not alive, the collector corrected. An extension of myself. I have absorbed its properties, just as I absorb all useful things I encounter. Ben rejoined the fight, launching a combination attack, crystal shards from one arm, fire from the other, while energy beams erupted from his feedback-transformed chest. The collector defended itself by creating barriers that mimicked each attack's properties, effectively neutralizing them. You cannot defeat me with abilities I can simply absorb and redirect, the collector explained, almost apologetically. I have had millennia to perfect my technique. Maybe not, Ben conceded. But I can keep you busy long enough for my friends to escape. He pressed the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, channeling more power into his transformations. The 5 different alien forms he was maintaining became more pronounced, more powerful, but at a cost. The strain was immense, and Ben could feel the Omnitrix heating up with the effort. The collector sensed the change and moved toward Ben with newfound urgency. Stop. You're overloading the device's absorption matrix. That's the idea, Ben grunted, pushing the Omnitrix even harder. Ben, what are you doing? Came Gwen's worried thought. The Omnitrix is going critical. Get Julie to the ship, Ben replied mentally. I'll handle this. As Gwen and Kevin hesitated, Ben launched an all-out assault on the Collector, every alien power he was currently wielding firing at maximum output. The Collector defended itself admirably, but the sheer volume of different attacks forced it to continuously adapt, stretching its absorption abilities to their limit. Fascinating strategy, the Collector acknowledged, its form becoming increasingly unstable as it absorbed more and more disparate properties. Force me to absorb too many conflicting elements simultaneously. Just like you did to Kevin, Ben retorted. Not so fun being the lab rat, is it? The Collector's form began to fragment, different absorbed properties fighting for dominance. You misunderstand, it gasped. I never harmed your friend. It was Psychoboss who, a sudden explosion rocked the observatory as one of the Collector's absorbed properties reacted violently with another. The creature staggered, temporarily losing cohesion. Ben seized the opportunity. Now. Go. Kevin grabbed Julie while Gwen created a mana platform that carried them all toward the maintenance shaft. Ben followed, his multiple alien forms giving him the speed and maneuverability to evade the Collector's attempts to recover and pursue. They fled through the maintenance tunnels, Ben's diamond head arm creating crystal barriers behind them to slow any pursuit. The station itself seemed to be fighting them, corridors shifting, doors sealing, systems activating to impede their progress. This whole place is part of him, Kevin observed as they ran. Like one giant organism. Less talking, more running, Gwen replied, maintaining a mana shield around their group. They finally reached a small service airlock near where Kevin had docked their stealth ship. As they prepared to exit, alarms blared throughout the station, and the voice of the Collector echoed through the corridors. Ben Tennyson. You don't understand what you're doing. The Omnitrix's absorption matrix is destabilizing. If you leave now, save it, Ben muttered, helping Julie into a space suit Kevin had retrieved from a nearby locker. Ben, Julie said, looking at his still transformed state with concern. Your watch is smoking. Ben glanced down and saw she was right, the Omnitrix symbol on his chest was pulsing erratically, with wisps of green-purple energy leaking from its surface. The strain of maintaining 5 transformations during intense combat had pushed it to its limit. I'll be fine, he assured her, though he wasn't entirely convinced himself. Let's just get out of here. The airlock cycled, and they spacewalked the short distance to Kevin's ship, which remained cloaked and undetected. Once inside, Kevin wasted no time powering up the engines. Hang on, he warned as he pushed the ship to full acceleration, breaking orbit around Europa and setting course for Earth. Ben finally released his transformations, returning to human form. The Omnitrix continued to pulse erratically, occasional sparks dancing across its surface. That doesn't look good, Gwen observed, examining the device from a safe distance. It'll stabilize, Ben said, though the pain shooting up his arm suggested otherwise. It did last time. Julie sat beside him, still trying to process everything that had happened. So, someone want to explain why I was kidnapped by a liquid metal alien and taken to Jupiter? Ben attempted a reassuring smile despite his discomfort. Remember when I said I was dealing with something complicated? This is it. My Omnitrix got changed, and now there's this whole group of absorption enthusiasts who are really interested in it. The Absorbing Collective, Kevin added from the pilot's seat. Apparently they're a bunch of freaks who collect absorption powers like trading cards. And their leader wants to recruit Ben, Gwen finished. Julie looked between them, then focused on Ben. Is that why you look different when you transform now? I noticed during the fight, it wasn't like your usual aliens. Ben nodded. Instead of full transformations, I can absorb and combine alien traits now. It's actually pretty cool when it's not, you know, malfunctioning. As if on cue, the Omnitrix sparked violently, sending a jolt of pain up Ben's arm that made him wince. That's it, Gwen declared. We need to contact Azimuth as soon as we're back in communication range. This isn't normal fluctuation anymore. Kevin adjusted some controls on the ship's console. We've got another problem. That station is launching pursuit craft. 3 of them, coming up fast. Ben moved to the cockpit viewport and saw the sleek silver vessels emerging from the massive space station, their engines glowing brightly as they accelerated toward Kevin's ship. Can we outrun them? Ben asked. Kevin's expression was grim. Not with our head start. They're faster and probably better armed. The stealth tech is our only advantage. Which won't help if they already have our trajectory, Gwen pointed out. Then we need to change it, Ben decided, looking at the Omnitrix. Despite its unstable condition, he knew he had to use it again. I can buy us some time. Ben, no, Julie protested. Your watch is already malfunctioning. She's right, Gwen agreed. You've pushed it too hard already. Ben shook his head. We don't have a choice. Those ships catch us, we're all going back to the collector. Before anyone could stop him, Ben activated the Omnitrix. The holographic interface appeared, flickering with static, but Ben managed to select a single alien form, Jetray, with his space survival capabilities and speed. As the transformation took hold, Ben felt something different. Instead of the usual clean shift to alien form, this felt more like his absorption transformations, gradual, selective, more under his conscious control. His body took on Jetray's appearance, but he could feel other alien DNA activating in the background, ready to be accessed. The Omnitrix is evolving again, he realized aloud, his voice now Jetray's. It's merging the full transformation and absorption functions. Is that good or bad? Kevin asked, eyeing Ben warily. Not sure yet, Ben replied. But I'm going to use it to lead those ships away from us. Once I'm clear, double back on a new course for Earth. Ben, Julie began. I'll be fine, he assured her. Jetray can outfly anything in the Collector's fleet, and I can switch to other aliens if I need to. Without waiting for further objections, Ben moved to the airlock. Give me 2 minutes, then change course. I'll find you. He cycled through the airlock and launched himself into space, the vacuum having no effect on Jetray's adapted physiology. The pursuit craft immediately detected him and changed course, exactly as he'd hoped. Ben accelerated away from Kevin's ship, drawing the Collector's vessels after him. Once they were committed to the chase, he pushed Jetray's speed to the limit, creating distance between himself and his pursuers. They've taken the bait, he communicated through the neural link. Change course now. Already on it, Kevin replied. Be careful, Tennyson. Ben continued to lead the pursuit craft on a wild chase through the Jovian system, using the Moon's and Jupiter's massive gravity to execute maneuvers the larger ships couldn't match. As he flew, he experimented with his new transformation state, discovering he could partially shift to other aliens without losing Jetray's flight and space survival capabilities. When one of the pursuit craft got too close and fired an energy net, Ben transformed one arm into Diamondhead's crystalline limb and shattered the net with crystal shards. When another attempted to use a tractor beam, he countered with Feedback's energy absorption abilities through his tail. This is incredible, he thought to himself. It's like having access to all my aliens at once, but with one primary form. After nearly 20 minutes of cat and mouse through Jupiter's orbit, Ben had led the pursuit craft far from Kevin's ship's new trajectory. Time to make his own escape. Focusing on the Omnitrix, Ben accessed more of Jetray's speed potential while maintaining his hybrid transformation state. With a burst of acceleration that left the Collector's ships far behind, he shot away from Jupiter and began the journey back to Earth. It took nearly an hour of high-speed space flight, but Ben finally caught up with Kevin's ship as it approached Earth orbit. The neural link allowed him to locate them despite their stealth systems. Coming in, he alerted them before approaching the airlock. Once back aboard, Ben released his transformation, returning to human form. The others stared at him in amazement. What, he asked, noticing their expressions. Your transformation, Gwen said. It was different. Like you were mostly jet ray but with other alien parts mixed in. Ben nodded. The Omnitrix is changing again. Instead of either full transformations or multiple partial absorptions, it's like a primary form with secondary traits available on demand. Evolution, Julie observed. It's adapting. Kevin guided the ship into Earth's atmosphere, heading for Bellwood. So is this good news or bad news? Because the last few evolutions of that watch haven't exactly been stress-free. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, which had stabilized somewhat during his space flight. The purple tint to its green glow remained, but the erratic pulsing had subsided. I think it's good, Ben decided. It feels more integrated now. Less like separate functions fighting each other and more like a unified system. Well, Azimuth will want to examine it either way, Gwen said. And we need to report to Grandpa Max about the collector and this absorbing collective. As Kevin's ship descended toward Bellwood, cloaking device ensuring they remained undetected by Earth's monitoring systems, Ben found himself deep in thought. The collector had seemed genuinely interested in study and preservation rather than conquest or destruction. Its methods were questionable, but its goals weren't necessarily malevolent. Something on your mind? Julie asked, sitting beside him. Just thinking about what the collector said, Ben replied. About the Omnitrix representing a new frontier for absorption abilities. What if he was right? What if this change isn't a malfunction, but an evolution that was always possible? Does it matter? Julie asked practically. It's happening either way, and you seem to be adapting to it pretty well. Ben smiled at her pragmatism. I guess you're right. And hey, at least you got to see Jupiter up close. How many tennis players can say that? Julie nudged him playfully. Next time you want to take me sightseeing, maybe just ask instead of arranging a kidnapping. Deal, Ben laughed. Their moment was interrupted by a proximity alarm from the cockpit. Kevin's voice called out, guys. We've got company. Ben and Julie rushed forward to join Kevin and Gwen. On the view screen, a familiar sight greeted them, Dr. Onimo's distinctive aircraft, hovering near the Bellwood Science Center. Seriously? Ben groaned. We just got back from space. No rest for the hero, Kevin quipped, adjusting their course to approach Onimo's position. Want me to drop you off? Ben looked at Julie apologetically. I need to go, she finished for him. I know. Just try not to get abducted by any more alien collectors, okay? Ben grinned. I'll do my best. Kevin brought the ship down in a secluded area near the Science Center, where they could disembark without being noticed. As they exited, the full extent of Onimo's latest scheme became apparent. Hybrid creatures similar to the ones they had encountered in the warehouse, but larger and more coordinated, were systematically breaking into the facility. What's he after this time? Gwen wondered. Only one way to find out, Ben replied, activating the Omnitrix. This time, he consciously explored the new transformation paradigm, selecting Humongosaur as his primary form but keeping the ability to access secondary traits on standby. The transformation was smoother than ever, with Ben's body shifting seamlessly into the dinosaur-like alien while maintaining a connection to his other forms. Whoa, Kevin commented, observing the transformation. That was different. New and improved, Ben replied in Humongosaur's rumbling voice. Let's test it out on Onimo. As they approached the Science Center, Julie called after them, be careful. And maybe try to wrap this up quickly. I could really use a normal date after being kidnapped to Jupiter. Ben gave her a thumbs up before charging toward Onimo's creatures, ready to face whatever new challenge awaited. Despite everything, the DNA splicer accident, the Omnitrix's evolution, the collector's interest, he felt more in control than ever before. The Omnitrix had changed, and so had he. Whatever came next, Ben Tennyson was ready to absorb it. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.